Good afternoon in New York, North America, and Canada's East Coast, and Haiti. Good morning in Arizona and California. Good evening in Ukraine and Rwanda, and welcome whatever time of day or night for all who are joining us from all corners of the world. I'm Yael Danieli, founder and executive director of the International Center for the Study, Prevention, and Treatment of Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma, ICMGLT for short. Thank you for joining our webinar, Dilemmas of Intergenerational Impacts of HIV/AIDS. This International Center for Multi-Generational Legacies of Trauma webinar is held in recognition of World AIDS Day, observed globally on December 1st. The multidimensional, multidisciplinary presenters will discuss from their personal and professional perspectives the intergenerational impact HIV has on families and the need for a person-centered HIV response. They will demonstrate the importance of including people with HIV in determining and providing essential services to all people living with HIV globally. Before introducing the webinar participants, let me acknowledge that this webinar would not have happened without the contribution of ICMGLT board member Dr. Mary Fabry and the dedication of ICMGLT's Haiti Working Group member Dr. Nadia Biasu. Your moderator, I am a clinical psychologist, traumatologist, victimologist, and psychohistorian. I have devoted much of my career to studying, treating, writing about, and preventing lifelong and multi-generational impacts of massive trauma, to ensuring victims' rights, to the rights of future generations, and to reparative justice. My concept of psychohistory, for your interest, views history not only as a series of dates and events, but as we live it, as it is lived by us today, shaping the guiding the meanings of our lives. Today's first speaker is Dr. Edouard Hazel, a former Secretary General of the Haitian American Physicians Association. Dr. Edouard Hazel is a clinical epidemiologist, board-certified internist, specialist in infectious diseases, who served as HIV consultant for the United Nations Development Program, where he spearheaded Haiti's 2002 applications to the UN Fund for Malaria, Tuberculosis, and HIV, and to the United States PEPFAR's initiative. He strongly advocated against the United States stigma against the Haitian community and the 1983 United States FDA 8-year ban on blood donation by people of Haitian descent. Today's second speaker is Marta Santiago. Marta is a Mexican-Puerto Rican health activist who was born and raised in the Midwest of the United States. She has a long history of fighting for equity for women and children and people of color who are affected by HIV/AIDS epidemic. Marta is the Chicago Community Advisory Board representative to the Max West Combined Cohort Study. Our third speaker is Henrietta Mukanyonga, a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, who worked as a senior counselor for Assistance Fund for Genocide Survivors, FARG, in Rwanda. Henriette earned a bachelor's degree from Kigali's Independent University. She supported HIV/AIDS patients and coordinated the youth program at Women Equity Access to Care and Treatment, WIHS, in Kigali. Currently, Henriette works as sexual assault response services of Southern Maine as preventionist educator. Last but not least is Dr. Madge Cohen. Dr. Cohen is an internist with a long history of activism related to women's health disparities, and fighting for high-quality, single-payer healthcare. In 1989, she founded the Women and Children HIV program to provide comprehensive medical and psychosocial services to women, their partners, and children at a single site at Cook County Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. She has led multiple NIH, National Institute of Health research studies to better understand how HIV affects women and their children. What an august panel. We have an hour and a half for the webinar. Each of our panelists will speak for about 8 minutes. Following an interchange among us, I will open the floor to questions or brief comments from the virtual audience. We will then conclude with what we call last words. Please use the question and answer or chat functions, and we will do our best to respond to as many questions and brief comments as we can. Feel free to direct your question to a particular panelist or to the full panel. I now have the profound pleasure to offer the screen to Dr. Edouard Hazel. Dr. Hazel, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And well, I have to say that I'm kind of biased because as a practitioner of population health, I try to, to look at, the forest, more than the individual trees, even though their lives and what happened to them is quite telling. The human experience, and it relates to my own experience with the Haitian community in Haiti and here in the US. I could say that the HIV epidemic and the response to it have been both, quite soulful experience and also an hopeful one. Because while the larger number of Haitians living in the US or in Haiti diagnosed with this infection did not survive the first year, of impact on their survival and lives of their direct descendant, either or not they were infected with the virus, because as we have come to know, 30% of children born of HIV infected mothers, would have the disease, and a larger number would not necessarily be infected. But at the same time, while care was not available initially and for up to 10 years to certain population, we have to say that when it became available, it has led to quite a normal life, I would say, and as a chronic illness to the people who are affected. But the trauma, the mental trauma that is, due to the stigma of what their community had to endure in themselves because of the infection, is something that we all in what we call the HIV scientific community, but I like to call it, are very, regretful because of the way it has happened. To this date in Haiti, there have been up to 53,000 children, orphans, from mothers who had died from HIV. And in a country where the resources are quite scanty, you can imagine the stigma that is associated with having the disease has made their own family and their community to reject them. And some of them, they have not survived, but some of them have been able to be treated and adapt. Because in this country, there are so many things to what I call the disasters, either human or natural made, have been quite frequent in Haiti for most of half of the century. We have had earthquakes, and currently armed gangs, control most of the capital, Port-au-Prince. But at the same time, because of the way in which the health providers, in what I just mentioned, in this HIV community, they have had to adapt, and currently up to 150,000 patients in Haiti who are infected with the virus continue to receive their medications under the treatment observe program is being implemented by Getcho with their leader, Dr. Bill Pack. Um, so in the US, the experience has been similar as it relates to once treatment was introduced in the 1983. Um, People with HIV, they have even been enticed through educations and other participations by the churches and leaders to get tested and get treated. And the incidence in the community here, as while it was up to 5%, it has definitely flattened considerably, and it and the Haitian community is not really singled out even in the data collection because their incidents reflect the same, that you could see in the non-sexually transmitted HIV in the larger community. But as it relates to the stigma that is associated with having been one of the groups that were singled out quite early as being responsible for the epidemics, but I have to say from an objective, point of view, those groups did carry a high incidence of the disease, when testing, became available after the virus was identified. And the four groups include the hemophiliac, the heroin addicts, the homosexual community, and the Haitian living here in the US. It became thus convenient to tag this group and for the FDA to preclude all groups to participate in blood donation. The ban lasts up until the 1990, but the implications and the impact on the community, on those communities and the Haitian community was very, 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 you know, I would say tragic. As a matter of fact, the first years of HIV, there was this social isolation, you know, even among Haitians, because the same way that there was a stereotypes they were victim of, at the same time, the community members became more or less withdrawn, and no one knew who had HIV. And in certain cases, we observed some suicide in Florida, and some people were dismissed from their work, and so on. But what we have noticed, even have effective treatment, the stigma of being singled out kind of seemed to last up until today. And I'm sure most of you have heard about those Haitians eating pets in Ohio, Springfield. I mean, those are the things that we came to hear about, but there are many things that are mumbled and fingers being pointed at people who are thought to belong to the Haitian community. And obviously, there is this fear that some members of our community to deny that they have Haitian blood and also to participate in community action, educations, or even protests when it comes to unfair treatment that might be quite obvious. So I will stop here because I think my time is up. But in few words, I would say that the HIV epidemic, as it relates to the descendant of people who were infected or who are not infected, has had, as it relates to the clinical aspect of it, has had some beneficial, result. It enticed people of getting educated, getting tested, and being treated. But at the same time, the lasting impact of the stigma and stereotypes that the community has endured, seem to have a lasting, life on its own. And I think educations and out pride and so on, you know, is remain the responsibilities of the leaders of this community because we are reminded over and over of being a special group, among the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Edward, for both providing us with a large picture and with a history and with the tragic effects of stigma. which is connected, of course, to the lingering psychosocial wounds. So please, Marta, please, the floor is yours for us to learn.
Thank you, Dr. Daniele. And thank you, Dr. Hazel. My name is Marta, and gosh, where do I begin? Well, I'm here, and that's a good thing that everybody's here to listen and talk. I'm always with an ear open, and Dr. Hazel just poked at some memories and just reminded me of things, took me back these decades here and there. I want to start with I was like anybody else back in the 70s. I was doing what the 70s was offering. I was married, I was divorced, I had a daughter. Then I remarried back in 78. I got pregnant with my son, who's going to be a big portion of this talk. He was born in 81, St. Patrick's Day, March of 81. I went on with my life, and that means that my particular session was that marriage dissolved pretty soon. It didn't last as long. So I was a single mother. By the time 89 came, 1989, there were commercials that were dictating to me, you should go get tested. If this, that, and the other have crossed your path. And I said, yes, yes, and yes. I went to get tested at a local community health center. And I had already psyched myself into thinking, the commercial said this, that, and the other, so I've done that, and I'll probably be positive. Not that I was sick, but I came out to be positive. When that came, I said, where do I go? Can I bring my 17-year-old and my 8-year-old? And they were, no, we don't test anybody under 18. You'd have to go to the Cook County Hospital. That was a public hospital. And luckily for me, there were many, many great people there. And luckily for me, there had been a program that had just started maybe 6 months prior. This was early February of 89. And so I went and I found in that busy, busy place, a health educator. The health educator, who is still currently a very dear friend of ours, he had my son tested. My daughter was tested, and the partner I was with, he was tested. So what happened was that my son came out okay. The partner was positive, lo and behold. And then my son was positive, but they didn't tell me that at first. They just said, look, come back again with your son because we lost the blood test. We need to test him again. Well, when they did that, they did tell me the truth the second time, that his test came out positive, but they didn't believe it. So they wanted a test to make sure because he was healthy looking. There was the kids that had been seen by that program were not as healthy, unfortunately. So that was a new program. That was a great program. They had wonderful people there. I didn't want to get involved because I didn't know how to get involved, but I kept being approached to be part of the group that they had. And the group that they had was growing into educators. So health educators to educate other people, health educators to educate the new moms on the OBGYN wards. I did get involved with that. But at the same time, how do you tell an 8-year-old that he's HIV positive? There's nothing wrong with him. They can't see it. I can't see it. So I told my doctor, I said, well, you're going to have to tell me how to do this. There's no rule, there's no directions with this. So she was the one that helped. And she told him, you've got a good army, you've got a bad army. Right now, the good army is winning. And it went on that way. We had an incident where my daughter became the health educator also, but we had an incident, and this was 89. Then in 90, he was going 4th grade to 5th grade. At the beginning of the class, the teachers were talking about, and mind you, he's in a clinic where everybody is open, everybody is playing as far as the kids, everybody's talking openly. He didn't have any fear of HIV. He quite didn't understand the whole concept of it, but I did say, you can't tell everybody. You got to be careful. So going into the next grade, viruses, germs, things you can't see, wash your hands, cover your mouth. At the end of the session, do you understand? The question came out general to the whole class. Do you all understand what a virus is? Well, he thought he was with an adult that would understand. And he said, he raised his hand, he says, yes, I have a virus that can cause AIDS. So that teacher took it to the principal, and the principal talked to him. And then before you know it, I had a note in my mailbox. I didn't have a phone at the time. And I came in thinking it was that they were going to talk to me about having his name downtown at Center of Education office, and it's safe. And I knew that if you breach about an HIV person, you can get some charges against you. So I came in, and that's what they talked to me about. Not that they had his name downtown. They did already, but it was that he said something like that in class. So that was the first scary part. The second scary part was when the principal had all of the sent out notices to all the parents that you may have heard, we have an HIV student in the school, so we want to give you education that, it's just not caught by saying hi or passing through the same hallways. Well, there was a note, a letter, and I did find that letter that was put out in the mailboxes after this meeting that I'd rather be safe than sorry. To the parents who have children at this school, blah, blah, blah. It's not supposed to happen in case, your kid's going to be infected. Who planted this kid here? They're not telling us anything. Dentist gave it to a patient, so how could they say we're safe? Well, it got news coverage, and parents were kind of upset that, get the education on it first. Kid deserves an education. So that was his second and biggest scare. You can't tell just anyone. So we kind of kept it under wraps, but he got educated along the way as he grew with me along getting, being an HIV person, but also caring for others and living a life as normal as you possibly can. Then after that, he just became simple with it. He grew with it. He helped me. There were times that he was with me when I did talks. I remember one time one of our nurses was having a talk, Annie Martin, with the other nurses, and she wanted a testimony, and he was there passing out whatever information needed to be passed out. We went under a different name. That's how scared I was at the beginning. So all of us. He was Al for Albert Einstein. My daughter was Sheila. I was Sonia. That went on for maybe 6 years. And then I said, no, we got to come out of this. And I did. I said, this is who I really am, but it was out of fear. So the stigma. There was a time that one of his friends came home. He always had a 3 o'clock pill to take, and that was AZT. That's all we had at the beginning. And the friend asked, well, what are you taking that pill for? What's the medicine for? Both at the same time. He said stomach, I said head. It was like, okay, which one are you telling the truth? He's gone on to get married. He's got I have two wonderful grandkids. His daughter, teenager now, 14. And she's come across, he was on pause, positively aware, maybe 14 years ago. And she saw that picture and she was like, Dad, what's that picture for? I was sending it somewhere, sending it to him or oh, I know, I was sending it to our 40th anniversary, part of the event coming up. But it was like, I said, Mark, when are you going to tell her? It's up to him. But he said, go for it, if you want to tell her, because I too would have to explain mine, that's where he got it from. So it's like, it'll happen when it happens. And I don't fear it. I know it's going to happen in a nice way. What are the other things? I had him in karate shortly after the diagnosis. And I had to let him know when he was that young. I said, if you ever get a bloody nose, to put your head back. I said, just excuse yourself, get to the bathroom, clean up. Don't let anybody else come by you, because they're quick at that. And he did karate for about 4 years. So it was, okay, you're going to do what everybody else does. Well, not everybody else, but what you feel like doing, that you're going to go and do it. I can't go on with anything that has been negative. I want to say that all the experiences that I've had, even with the pediatrics, ACTG, the AIDS clinical trials, I pushed because they had liquid forms of everything at the time. They didn't know how to properly, by weight, everything was liquid. But I pushed him into everything. That poor kid, I pushed him into anything and everything that was offered. And the women's children's program had the best that could offer. And everybody seemed to be coming to that program because that program just might have to wait a while to get your medicine, but everything was there. Any testing, psychological testing that they sent him for, whatever they had came out of it. Massage therapy, when that came to, I said, no, if he could take these toxic drugs, he should be able to have therapy of massage to get that stuff moving out of him, whatever is just, sitting around. And I had a battle with that. There was, when they got it there at the clinic, they were against having anybody under the age of 13. And he was, I think he was 12 maybe, or going on 13. They didn't want any youngsters because they were fearing, what if they say we were touched wrong? They were touched wrong. So they didn't want to come through any harassment charges, or not harassment, touching wrong. But I did find other programs that were out there, and they welcomed him with open arms. In fact, there was one gentleman who did a talk on with the needles, acupuncture. So he actually came to our home because my son was only 12 or going on 12 at the time. And unfortunately, he passed away because he accidentally got picked with a needle from when he was doing when he was doing session on a person who was positive. So my son, I've gotten him through a lot of stuff, and I pushed. I wasn't so focused on myself because everything was there. It was literally handed to me. All of that was that was coming up, boom, firsthand. I mean, Marge and everybody else, all on the staff, they were bulls at getting things, the doors opened and to the public who need it. And those who need it at the time, the women and the children, were the ones that they were in the background, not knowing that we were getting infected. And unfortunately, at the time my son was 13, I told his father, after I felt confident with my education, I told his father that I was positive. I didn't take the hint until after. He said, okay, but what about Mark? I didn't realize, and I didn't know until we were going to court for an insurance policy he was supposed to have on my son, or to give my son. And he didn't show up one time to pick him up, and he was very regular at that. That was another sign. But then my lawyer was the one that told me, are you sitting down? He didn't show up to court again, and this is what's happening, or what happened. And she was the one that told me he passed away. I hadn't heard anything, and he passed away from AIDS. So I was constantly telling myself, oh, I did this and I did that and I did that I was the one. Well, I did get it, but it was my actions alone. And when he passed away, then I had to hear it from someone else to tell me, you're always blaming yourself, but you don't know who. And that was a big hit for him when I had to tell him that his dad passed away from AIDS. And he was one of them very upset children that, well, here, Dad, have some of my blood. Here, he was just saying crazy things like that. But it was out of anger and hurt that his father couldn't tell him, even though he knew about. I told him, yes, our son is positive. So my son was born with it before the 076 study for women, pregnant women, came out, but he's fine. I have 2 wonderful grandchildren over in California, and they come just about every summer now, and things are good. So he's going through, I mean, I thought of sperm washing when that came out, but it's fine. I said, when that time comes and she's pregnant, you got to let them know so that they could take their precautions during her delivery. And that's exactly what happened. So everything I learned from the people that I woke up with, in the sense of my head was clear and I took a different path with HIV. And I remember one time I said, since I learned I was positive, things were coming out positive for me in a good way. Some people didn't like that I said that, but that's the way it was. That was my experience. And unfortunately, my son couldn't be here. I was trying to text him to see if he had 2 minutes maybe, but he's a good-looking, healthy 43-year-old going through whatever headaches his children deemed to give him. So other than that, those were some of the dilemmas of, just the ignorance and some of the good things. He was on the cover of Positively Aware back in 2011. Oh, too many years go by so fast. So in 2011, and everything is fine. I mean, I still pay bills, and now he's paying bills.
Thank you, Marta. You're an amazing storyteller.
It happened.
I think we all lived it with you.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for for the ups and the downs and the winning end. I'm sure that we will continue that in the dialogue section of the webinar. I'm sure we will analyze more about the winning end and the meaning of Marge's suggestion to call it dilemmas. But she will talk about that. And so thank you, Marta. And Henriette, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Henriette Mukanyonga. I was born and raised in Rwanda. I am a survivor of genocide against Tutsi 1994 in Rwanda. After genocide, I worked as a senior counselor for assistance fund for genocide survivors, FARG, in Rwanda. I have received extensive counseling training to aid genocide survivors, starting by myself, healing myself before starting working with other people. Since 2005, I started working in women equity access to care and treatment, WIHS, and this non-profit organization based on the history of genocide against Tutsi 1994 focused on women raped during genocide. Some of them have been infected by HIV/AIDS. Among the people who have played a major role in WIHS development, Dr. Madge and Dr. Mary Fabry, both are here with me today. I'm happy to be with them today. They have done excellent job with WIHS till the present. Currently, I work at SALSAM, Sexual Assault Response Services of Southern Men, SALSAM, as a preventionist advocate. We provide free services in New York and Cumberland counties in Southern Maine to anyone affected by sexual harassment, sexual abuse, or sexual assault. Through our programming, we provide advocacy, prevention, education, and engagement to people impacted by HIV, by sexual violence, whether survivors or people that care about them. SALSAM provides free confidential 24 hours, 7 days helpline for anyone affected by sexual violence. So today I'm here to share with you about lessons learned from working with people living with HIV, especially youth living with HIV. WIHS started working in Rwanda in May 2005 as WIHS established based on the history of genocide against Tutsi 1994, focused on women who were raped, and some of them were infected with HIV infection. And also some of them gave birth to children with HIV infection. It was hard to disclose the status to their children, how they were born infected from their parents. It was very hard. At that moment, research to help women giving birth to HIV-free children, prevention of mother-to-child transmission, PMTCT, has not yet been published. WIHS provide the holistic care to client. All people, all clients have access to all services free of charge, including access to medication, ART, antiretroviral treatment, nutrition support, mental health services, and all services were free of charge. The parent who give birth with children infected with the infection, it was very hard to disclose why they are HIV positive, and also they give medication every day. Sometimes children ask many questions. Sorry. They asked their parents why I'm taking medication every day, every time. Parents lied them. They said, you are taking medication to grow well. Others lied that the medication you are taking is just to prevent the disease, and please take medication. They hide them that they are HIV positive. Because it was hard for the parents to disclose, WIHS started a disclosure service in order to help parents tell their children the truth about why they were born with HIV. Tell them it was an accident, that were infected during giving birth or during feeding. We worked with parents, caregivers, and the guardians. We conducted 12 sessions of disclosure, which was a difficult process with deep emotional for the parents, and some of them reached out the goal to tell their children the truth. Others were unable to do it themselves, and they they used counselors to help them with the disclosure process. What happened during and after disclosure? During this process, there were deep emotion and serious conflict between parents and the children. Disclosure was done to children between age 7 or older. And what happened? Some children, after getting the information, have information that they are HIV positive. The reactions were very different, but too bad. Some children drop out of school. Others refused medication completely. Some become street children, starting abuse drugs because they got upset towards their parents. Some questions to ask their parents: if you knew that you are HIV positive, why did you give me birth? You hate me. Why you choose me to among my siblings, my brothers, my sisters? Why I am HIV positive, others are negative? It was very complicated for the parent to answer the questions. Sometimes in the same family, it could be very difficult because they have more than one child infected. In our program, I remember we had one mom who had 5 children. All of them, they were infected. It was very hard. As a team, even if it was difficult, as a team, we never give up. We kept going to care for them until they reached the point of forgiveness between the child and the mother and parents. Reminding the child that father or mother are not responsible in infecting intentionally because they love them so much. In 2006, WIHS has been thinking about the service that can help children to feel more better and have a better life by starting children support group program. We met on Sunday, every child from 5-year-old and older. And this impacted in a positive way. The children met each other and realized that they were not alone is HIV positive. There are other people, there are other children who are HIV positive like me. We started with 24 children, but in 1 year, we started to receive more than 100, between 100 and 200 children in the Sunday support group. Sunday support group includes games, dance, theater, songs, craft, etc. as activities. It helps the children to be happy and relax. We provide snacks and transport fees for every child who attended the Sunday support group. This changed the relationship between parents and children. We had a meeting with the parent once in 3 months to discuss the relationship with the children and to see if they were there are some issues and we look for the solution together. In 2009, WIHS also we had a new program, summer program, that helps so much the children to be together and to have different activities. And they enjoyed so much when they were with people from outside country. We had a partnership with Latin school in Chicago, and the Latin students are coming every year to join the summer program with Rwandan children. They have many different activities, including trips, going outside for ice cream together. It helps them to be happy, more happy, and accepting their status. And in 2010, but in 2009, through the summer program, it was a good opportunity to select the oldest to become peer leaders. Peer leadership. Peer leadership started, and we selected among the children. And in 2010, the new program born for the youth program that I was coordinating this program for 11 years. This program was we should separate children under 12 with over 12 because the over 12 they started to be to have another stage, adolescent, and they were different. We had two sites separating children under 12 and with the over 12. We selected youth leaders, and we provide them the extensive training to help their peers. We call them peer parents. Each peer parent has given responsibility of caring for their peers in small groups that we create based on age and gender in order to feel comfortable in group discussion. We developed topics, and first of all, we emphasized on adherence to medication because many of them were tired to take medication every day, long time. Other topics include opportunistic infections, such as, or also we had another, such as tuberculosis, and also we had other topics like depression, stigma, disclosure, reproductive health, safe relationships, and other that help them become valuable people in the community. Outcomes of support groups was that youth created their own communities. They created artificial families. Some of them lived in the adoptive families that first mistreatment. Some relatives abused them sexually or other kind of violence. So when they are coming in the support groups, they feel like they have their own family, and it increased the self-esteem. Yeah, in 2012, with partnership with Musicians Without Borders, the music service was included in the WIHS program. It was a solution for the young people where they can express their messages or emotional through music. Some learned to sing using the voice, others learned playing drums, guitar, piano, and everyone was free to choose where she feel or he feel comfortable. But also it was a good opportunity to develop the talent or help them to create their own business that generate income. Some of them, they became musician, guitar player, piano, and they use as business. Soon after, we had also yoga program also introduced into the WIHS program, which is appreciated by children and adults. A long-term training conducted some youth leaders, and the opportunity to work as business of the WIHS. We have one young person who became a yoga teacher at the national level. They gain so much money for that. Yeah. So some challenges I can say about stigma. The stigma has been the center of many challenges in the lifestyle of youth living with HIV. Some youth tried to disclose their status to their friends, families, but they have negative feedback. Some people change their attitude towards the people living with HIV, the youth living with HIV, and taking social distancing, mistreatment at school, discrimination by relatives, friends, neighbors, guardian, caregivers, and that's why the youth prefer to keep secret for their status because they are fear to be rejected by peers and fear to be rejected everywhere they are going. Bad adherence, it was very big challenge because all the time when they are taking a medication in front of the friends, they ask why you are taking medication every day, especially youth in boarding school. Sometimes they lie, I'm taking medication because I headache. And the other, the colleagues, when they headache, they can please give me, I need to share with you the medication. That's why sometimes they feel frustrated and they stop taking medication while they are in school. Success, even if we face challenges, but we have success. We have high school and university graduate. Yeah, because of counseling, because of mental health, because of the care treatment from WIHS, the youth fight for the future life. High school, they do not more stopping their school. Some youth go to the job at WIHS clinic as receptionist, advocate, data collectors, home visit provider, and the health relationships occurred. Some have married and have families, and they give birth of free HIV children because of PMTCT. Yeah, okay. Briefly, the children living with HIV, they have a bright life. They plan their future as other people, and using the words say that if you are living with HIV, we will not let HIV affect our lives in negative ways. It was a very good word to use.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the details of the program. They help us they help us understand the function of different interventions. So thank you so much. And Marge, please, why did you call it dilemmas?
Well, I think the last 40 years of this epidemic has confused people, hurt people, challenged us all, and we've learned so much. And there's the potential for learning even more to solve our current dilemmas that we have between stigma, health, trauma, countries fighting with each other, and really challenge us to really make the love that people should have for each other much, much better. So I would just want to say that what Marta and Henriette have described, there's very, very little for me to add. I'll try to emphasize a few things and make it quite short so we can get to audience questions. In 1989, when we started the Women and Children's Program in Chicago, basically it was because a woman with HIV stormed into my clinic room, loudly accusing me of being not good enough, not a feminist, nothing that I should be in the world if I cared about women and children with HIV. And that was an attack. So I tried to listen calmly, and she told me exactly what we should do. She said we needed a program that was specific. She said we needed to have people who cared about her as a woman, about her as a woman who had a child, about her gynecological problems, her mental health, her substance use issues, her psychological needs. And we heard her, and we tried to do that. And most importantly, I think an issue that was a dilemma for people taking care of people with HIV back then, and hopefully not now, is that women were viewed solely as vectors. It only mattered if they passed the virus on to children or they passed the virus on to men. People didn't care about them for themselves. Now, a woman could be desperately just caring about her child, but if she's not feeling that you care about her as a person, whatever you want to do to her kids, with her kids, is not going to work in the same way as if she's engaged in a real partnership with you about the things she cares about. So that was a really, really important dilemma that people had to understand and do better at. And then, after a while in Chicago, our program was caring for about 80% of the women and children in the city. And that gave us an enormous amount of experience and information about how to do better, and listening to people and including them in how things are designed so that they can tell you exactly what you want to do, what you should do to do things the best way, is a lesson that we always have to relearn, because a lot of providers are taught to think that they know everything, and then they don't listen to what anybody has to say. So it's really an important lesson. We also realize that women do care for their children, so whatever they do will be prioritized. So you have to understand that. So therefore, if we said, well, the clinic will see the women and the kids at the same time, so that the woman doesn't have to come another time for herself, because likely she won't. Why would you? If the major thing you cared about was being taken care of at that moment, your child, just go with that. So that was really important. And the other thing, which, I think has been identified also by Marta and Henriette, and the other thing that's been identified by them is the importance of support. Women gave each other enormous support. And that support was challenging someone, and they may not have been kind to each other in the group, challenging people to care about themselves more. But I think most importantly, to teach women each other to have mutuality. I'll care for you, you'll care for me. That kind of value is actually something we studied, and we did a qualitative analysis, and we found that the women who did the best health-wise, their T cells went up, their viral load went down, their lives were happier, were the women who actually did follow that. They helped others, and they felt gratitude when others helped them. The other thing that was important for that group was enormous amount of information availability, what both of the previous speakers have stressed, and also what Dr. Hazel emphasized. And then the third thing was the agency, to feel that you had the power and the resources to act on that information and that desire to do good for others and to have them do good for you. And again, the thing that I think you emphasized and that we learn all the time is that women or people deciding what services they need and listening to what they have to say is really the essential component, I think, to any good healthcare system. And then just finally, it turned out that everything we learned, I think, from the generational issues that women shared with us was that were several really important ones, that reproductive justice was critical. Whether you wanted to have children or you didn't want to have children, that should be supported. And of course, that's a major issue in our country right now. Secondly, that providing full service healthcare without pay, without charging, and universally, okay, was a way for people to have better feel respected and know that they meant something to someone and were respected. And third, that thinking that if there are questions that are unanswered, we should work together, providers and patients, in figuring out the answers, whether that's by research, whether that's by trial and error in an intervention approach or a support group type approach. And if it doesn't work, switch to something else, whether it's research or quality improvement. If you do that as a team, you're much more likely to succeed. And all of these lessons, I think, came out of the HIV movement, but are absolutely important for us to still remember today. And the final one is that all of this came out of a lot of activism. People didn't just sit there. I mean, the way Marta and Henriette described things was so thoughtful and so articulate, but there was also a lot of screaming that was done because people didn't want to die. And people wanted to win. They wanted to live, and they were loud about it. And that was really, really important. And we can't forget that. So I'll leave it there.
God bless you. Thank you so much. And for your screaming and heroism too. I know all about the screaming. And thank you for so clearly laying it out. I would like to, I mean, this has been an unbelievable panel with what strikes me as founder of our center is how many times, and indeed, Dr. Hazel, please join our dialogue fully, so we don't just speak to here. Thank you, wonderful. And Mary Fabry, would you please like to join our dialogue? Since your spirit is with us all the time. Thank you, dear. You can unmute. I have too many things that came to my mind, so I will let Mary reflect on what you just heard. And then, and each one of you, if you have questions or comments to each other, then indeed we invite the audience to put their thoughts or questions, please. Mary, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And thank all of you for your presentations that were so informative. I'd like to sort of broaden the perspective, though, to a human rights lens, actually, that healthcare is a human right. And to have access to care and treatment is a human right. We really need to broaden that lens. And if you take that broad lens, but then narrow it down, one of the things I was so struck by, Marta and Henriette, was, it starts even within the family on the ground, right? Parents, guardians, family members are afraid to talk to each other, to have open communication, And in a study that's going on now, where there are youth sessions led by youth leaders and parent caregiver groups, one of the comments as the caregiver groups are closing is, we're learning that our youth want to talk to us. And I think that you start down there, people do want to feel a connection. They want to feel supported. Often we create families that are, that are not biological, but that they're out of friendships. And that's what both the Children and Women's Clinic and WIHS created, was a sense of community and family that provided support. And then hopefully will spill over into their actual families, and then up, right? And one last point is I would make, I think, for the Women and Children's Clinic and WIHS, we were informed by our counselors and nurses who were speaking to the clients, the women and children and their families living or impacted by HIV, about what their needs were. And then once that would be brought back to sort of the administrative program development people, it's like, okay, how can we respond to this need? We weren't observing and saying, oh, it looks like. We were hearing from
You were
people.
asking, most likely you were also asking,
Oh, yeah, asking, but also our counselors on the ground, those who are interacting at that intimate level, were listening and being told, right? So it's, how can we learn to listen to each other and learn from each other and help each other, which was one of the points I think everyone was making, is how can we create this more compassionate community?
See, part of what I was going through listening to all of you was exactly that. 50 years ago, when we built the first program to help Nazi Holocaust survivors and their children, we had no training, right? So we actually had to be taught by what I learned to call the real experts, which is the actual people who went through the experience. And I always say, people get tired of it, that what makes me an expert is that I listened. Particularly because we really didn't have any. Our education, the highest education, did not include how to meet these challenges. And of course, the importance of group and community. I wanted to raise one more very painful realization here. The existential pivot of mother-child, the ideal motherhood, so to speak, or parenthood. I don't want to exclude men from here, even though for some reason we are focusing today on mothers. But we should have a special session on men as well. I think maybe next year we should start thinking about that. But the crux of the mother is supposed to hold, to protect, to give her best, to give the child the best. And here the child says, "You didn't give me the best. It's your fault. You should have not even given birth to me if you knew that there's risk." And I think we need to get more into that. To use Madge's word, dilemma. It's so profound, really. What parenting involves. You're talking about free care. How about educating parents how to be parents? That has been one of my pet peeves. How many times do we even attend to that? But I was wondering if any one of you, Dr. Hazel, you were listening to the others after you. Do you have any question or any comment? Let's sort of go through a dialogue before we go to the audience. Please, Dr. Hazel.
Yes, it reminds me of those early days and how the human spirit, from an individual point of view or from a community point of view, how it has evolved, for the last 40 years, because, even though I used to work on the macro, with the UN and with organizations, but also I used to practice in the village in New York, Greenwich Village, where
That was the place. Yes, I
right, where the gay community
yes.
was very, very affected. And I think that, I came to learn how solidarity uh, could be therapeutic, because during the time before there was a treatment, before AZT and during AZT, your care became a community experience in terms of what science could not teach us, but the patients, by sharing, it will be, you know, experience that you can relate to others. And the way it used to work, um, we had this practice in the village, and my partner, um, one of whom had HIV and subsequently passed, and I had another partner who did not have HIV, but he was also a member of the community, and he was the one to introduce me in the community. And the thing that kind of I remember the first week I started to work, uh, my partner, doctor, he said, "You guys, I know some of you are racist," but he has his way to talk, and if you have a problem with Ed, just tell it in my face or in our faces. And they say, well, the only problem we might have is maybe because he's not gay. So therefore, for us to ask him if he has a problem with us. And it was so, so true, the way we talk. And when there was no treatment, some of them would say, doc, if I want to end it before I get some very, very debilitating disease, would you be my accomplice in doing such? And I had to say, well, officially I cannot say yes, but I understand, and I think we can talk about it, because we have to talk about everything else, from your fear to, when it is hopeful, and whenever. And then the practice, they used to call me from wherever. Some of them, they were traveling a lot, from Germany to wherever they were. They would say, Doc, I just ate this thing. Do you think that I'm going to catch an infection? And it was so true. And actually, when treatment became available, we used to tease each other to say, Doc, I don't tell you everything now because, those, where we were so intimate, we don't have them no more. And both of us will regret. But it's whenever we could pass to the next generation, except this experience that Maria had with her son, I think with the advent of treatment, it is no longer so dramatic and it might not be so intimate because AIDS, HIV has become just a chronic disease as any other chronic illness. But it did initially to understand the human soul, its strength, and this is something that has marked us, throughout the years that we have this community.
Yeah. There is a world community, but in some ways it's still too much of a secret community.
Yes, I might say, and then actually, at times, before, to us it was a privilege, to be accepted, once in the gay community, and people were so secretive about it, but at the same time, they made alliance with you in terms of understanding the way they live and accept some of the advices that you might have. The reverse was more true because the more we learn from one patient, we can take it to the other patients, and it is has been a link between different lives, and I think it was the best way that we could use. We could work as healers, because nobody, learned from the school, how it was to either, be living with HIV and was, to learn from one patient and be able to relate it to another patient. It was not really things that you have learned from your practice or from your academic study.
Yeah, this is really part of the long-term success story that we should talk and talk and talk about. Use as an inspiration because, part of what's going on this year was we had at the UN the summit for the future. And we spoke about the rights of future generations. And I wrote an article about that where I said future generations should have the rights for healed parents. So not just what I said before, teaching parents, that's one way, but healed parents. So parents will talk to their children like Marta talked to her son, right? Or in Henriette's groups, groups help parents and children talk to each other in ways that will be healing for the future, rather than focusing on the pain and the blame and the shame and only. Come on, I'm talking too much because I'm very excited about the how much I've learned today and how much we need you in our center to keep the dialogue for all other groups that we work with. And I have the dream that you spoke about, Henriette, and I'm sure Madge had something to do with, and Mary too, of bringing communities together. Right. So you're resurrecting my dream to bring everybody in the center, all the groups, to learn from each other. But I wonder, do you have any more questions of each other? Because we actually don't quite have questions from the audience. We have thank yous in acknowledgement of how much you've given. So could we continue this dialogue? Mary, I can see you're ready to say something. Unmute.
No, I just wondered, I was thinking more about the parting comments, that perhaps to each other, what?
Not yet, not yet, not
Okay,
yet.
well, that's sort of where I was looking.
Thank you. Not yet. I still, within this process of discussion, you still, Marge, I can see that you are, well, you could probably speak for a whole day.
I think I spoke the shortest.
Yes, yeah, but you gave a lot in a short, in your shortness. One thing I do want to
I think what
encourage you
Dr.
to do.
Edouard
Yeah,
just talked
go ahead,
about,
Marge.
I think what Dr. Edouard talked about was really important, that we had the privilege of being in the most intimate aspects of people's lives, drug use, dying, terminal illnesses, fear for their families, stigma. I mean, it was a phenomenal, as he said, privilege. I'm preparing a talk for our 30th anniversary celebration of the women's research and 40th anniversary of the men's research that NIH has funded next week in DC. And I use that word to describe what I thought was our incredible, the epidemic should never have happened, and we don't think anything makes up for having it happen. But for us to be able to have learned so much from so many people going through such a devastating community tragedy, personal tragedy, family tragedy, healthcare tragedy was just, incredible. I mean, it just changed all of our lives, it affected all of our lives. This is what I was hearing you talk about, Edward. So I really second that. And then also, you always sort of say it, these kind of things. Oh, we really should be hearing from the people affected. But having had Marta and Henriette sharing on the webinar was really so meaningful and really special. And hopefully those less familiar with the things they talked about got as much out of it as I did. I certainly hope so.
Thanks. Marta, Henriette, would you like to comment or ask or any of that?
I just want to say that I'm pleased that I was asked to talk about what's in my past, but yet I carry with me until the day I leave this wonderful earth. But the communication, I was just coming to think of the communication that I have with my son. We went through so many years of, you got to take this and it's for that. And the poor kid, if he's not throwing those big old horse pills back up, it was like he did it for the cause. There was the cause of future. And I thought the same. You got to go to graduate high school. You got to get into college. You got to start a family, on and on. He went with it well. Unfortunately, he saw some of the other kids that he had gone to camp with not make it. And that was a big thing for young kids to see other kids go. They didn't come back. Or we went to a couple of wakes. He did see what it could do. So I think that was another reason why he didn't fight me against it. And he saw that I was still doing it. So we did it together. I can only the way medication is now, how many people might he, it's down to a routine. He's doing fine, but how many people might he run into that even talk about HIV?
Yeah.
And if it comes up, his scruples, all of his knowledge, you know, he'll either keep it at, listen, see what they got to say, good or bad. He doesn't go into too much of it. I had mentioned he had that incident at school. Graduation, 8th grade graduation from elementary school. I was there when they were at rehearsal. And while we were sitting down waiting for the next, whatever the teacher was doing, one child had said, hey, do you guys remember, did anybody ever find out who that kid was who had HIV? Do you guys remember that incident? He turned and gave me a smiley look, but he goes, yeah, whatever happened to that? Did anybody ever find out? I mean, he's, you know, it's a way of life. But unfortunately, some people are not doing well with it. But for the most part, I have to say, things came out good. But was mentioned about the family. You go into the clinic, and that was our extra family. That's where we went to enjoy what life has. That's where we learned. We learned from one another. As I had said before, there's not a book. You learn as you go. Either it works or
you have to write the book. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. You learn as you go, and that works for me. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. We're all individuals. That we did learn. We're all individuals. So
yeah. Also, Marge, you mentioned studies. The center does have the richest library, multidisciplinary library of anything related to intergenerational transmission of trauma. So please add these studies, send them to us so they're included in the library, okay? Anything you know about, including the book that you're writing. Faye Paris asked, and that relates to what you just said. Faye Paris asked, what are some best practices in addressing challenges within the school system when it comes to stigma? Of course, Faye, this is not only about HIV/AIDS, it's about all stigmas, but who of you would like to pick up the question?
what was that with school?
Best practices addressing challenges within the school system when it comes to stigma.
Oh Lord, I can't say more than education. If you don't know about how the virus works in the human body, I mean, that is the best thing, the education. It's that portion of my son's that chapter in his life was very meaningful to see the educators come on stage, the parents sitting in the auditorium, giving what he was already taught at that age, how the transmission occurs, how it doesn't occur. That was what really stuck to him. And Lord knows, after that, I said, when you become of age, this is how you use a condom, and this is how you take it off. Put it on, take it off. That was a big part, as part of the health education portion that the clinic offered. My going to show these women who just had babies, there was an actual, there was an actual penis to use with condoms to show them how to put it on and take it off. And You didn't use one because you just had a baby.
A actual penis or a model of a penis?
A model.
Okay,
The model.
just be clear.
Yes, the model.
No, I
yes,
got it.
yes.
I got it.
Oh, but you know what? We did have one that had the cream come out, so it was as close as can be. Only it was in
Gotcha.
the case.
Extremely important. So you're saying education, education, education on all levels.
Yes. My
Absolutely.
son had one of his friends come, Mom, show it to them, show it to them. And I had to take the case out, and this is how you do it. And I think they were like 13.
So I'm not even going to ask Henriette and Madge to ask if you incorporated it into your programs that is educating the school system or the community. But before we do that, Katema Fayaz would like to ask a question and would like to have the microphone. Rabbi, would you please give her? Go ahead, Katema. We are listening. Katema, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello everybody here. I'm
Could you
sorry I
speak?
cannot.
Would you speak up, please? Yeah.
Yeah, it is 1 o'clock midnight here. I cannot uh, make on my video. I'm sorry for that. I have a question. So I'm Khatima Fayaz from Afghanistan, and now I'm living in Quetta, Pakistan. I'm running a school with over 300 students, all mothers, for refugee here. So as I think you're talking about the rights of next generation and the rights of human, so I'd like to ask that how can I make it so clear for my students that all of them, they are mothers, that they must pay attention as much as they can on their babies and their kids, because they are the leaders of tomorrow. So how can I make it clear? Because all my students, they are mothers, and they are unfortunately uneducated mothers. It is literacy school that I opened for them, and I teach them for free. It's really tough to make some titles like this clear for them. I'd like to ask you, and if you have any way to offer me, I'm really thankful from you. Thank you.
Well, I think there are models for answering your question. I just listened to Zaki Ahmed, a South African gay HIV infected man who shared his experiences of getting, while getting an award, of educating very poor, illiterate women with HIV very early on in the epidemic in a country that gave no support for the treatment of women who were pregnant and were infected with HIV. And he talked about how it was very challenging, just like you're saying, but they really were pretty desperate to learn more about this disease. And they figured out ways together to get women who they were illiterate numerically, in numeracy as well as literacy, as well as reading. And he was able to, and their group was able to work together to actually really, the enthusiasm and the goal and the mission of the education was what enthused the grouping to have a successful and large movement of people fighting for more human rights in terms of education, housing, poverty reduction, and care related to HIV. I don't know if others have more to add, but I don't think it's easy, but I think it's what everybody's desperate to do.
And Katema, our hearts are totally with you in the sense that women are not even allowed education now in Afghanistan. And I'm sure that with our activists, we can find ways of educating that are not necessarily within the school system, but it's simply 2 or 3 more challenges. Please stay in touch with us, with the center. I'm so glad that you are here with us today. And I'm sure the challenge you brought up will perk up the interest of at least this panel, if not more people in the audience. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. And our hearts are with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Because as a girl here, even in Pakistan, I'm facing many challenges. So I'd like to be in touch with such kind of people and ask them some way that how can I face and deal with these challenges in order to empowering mothers, because they are so much influential on the life of even 5 next generations or the life of their kids. So I'm really happy to be here with you and also to be contact with you in order to know some ways, because I'm just 26 and I don't have any kids or like this. I don't know much more about how to train, how to make it understandable for them that their children are too much influential and so their lives are influential and they are the leaders of tomorrow, and these mothers must pay attention on their life. So thank you so much for answering my question, and thank you.
Thank you.
And Katema, I do think if there's a way for us to communicate with you, whether it's
Absolutely.
WhatsApp or email, whatever, that would be helpful, because I think there are some teaching strategies that simplify material information that might be helpful for you that could be shared. So I don't know what's the best way to communicate with you.
And this is exactly what the center is for. So please, I know we have your email address if you're here, but feel free to write to us. That
Okay.
it's
Is
Okay,
that
I'm going to write my email address in the chat.
okay? Great, thank you, Fateh.
and Marta, you have a special double message.
I see.
Thank you for the light you put out for all of us. I'm sure
Thank you. Thank you.
meant it for Henriette
That's
too.
from, yes, thank you.
And yeah, so I hate to end this because I mean I feel like I've just begun to learn, and we can continue this dialogue on and on and on. And there's so many layers to it that we have not touched. I mentioned the men. I mentioned, although Edouard, you did mention your work. God bless you. In those terrible days in the village, I lived there at the time, and of course we didn't even touch the. Although excuse me, Marta, you implied it in your presentation. But we didn't even look at the whole change of mores about sexual behavior in the whole society. Right? Suddenly people were dating and the first question will be, were you tested? So many changes, really. Those of you I know, Marta and Edouard, we lived in those days. I guess, Marta, you did too, your grandmother. You remember those ages of free sex and how they went by the wayside because of AIDS? You remember how life was different? So there's so much indeed to reflect upon. And as Mary reminded us earlier, I promised the audience that you would leave your last word. So please, let's start from the end. Marge, what last word would you like to leave with everybody?
I just want to thank everybody for their sincere comments, and I hope we didn't learn some lessons during COVID that we should have as a country and as a world. And I hope, though it's going to be hard for the next 4 years, that nationally and globally, we really try to do better by each other. I think that's what the HIV epidemic taught me.
I want to say,
Next is Henriette in the order. Back to go ahead, Henriette. Your message to leave with.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my work experience working with people living with HIV. My message is that we need to normalize the subject of HIV and to say to people that having HIV, it is not shameful. You need to accept, we need to encourage people that they are normal people, they are not dying, they are here to live long. That is my message. Thank you.
I love it. Go ahead, Marta.
I want to say thank you for inviting me on this, and lovely to have these beautiful, wonderful faces talking their particular journey. Mine, I tried to give as much of my journey as possible. And I always, education.
Exactly.
I look at the commercials that are on today opposed to what was on 10 years ago. Every other commercial is about, it seems like, an HIV drug and the freedom you have now to have an injection and have your medication every other month instead of every other day. I mean, every day.
Every
Thank
day.
you. I'm there finally, even through that to my son, but he goes, I don't want to go to the doctor every other month. It's okay the way I got it. I can go every 6 months and I get it coming to the house. I said, all right, everybody has it, but we've come a long way, but the education never stops. Never stops.
Absolutely.
And yeah, if I feel like I could tell you about my status, that's fine. If not, so be it. None of your business. It's who we choose. Still, it's who we choose. But again, here I am talking to people I don't know, and that's what I've done. That's what I've become, and that's what I'll be until they stop asking.
God bless you for that. Edouard, you have the absolute last word.
Well, half of a century of HIV has definitely changed the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think every single person during that period of time, they have their behavior change and also altered some of their prejudices, the better way or the wrong way. But the intimate experience for women with HIV and children who happen to be in the third of the ones who would be infected with HIV is unique, very unique, as Marta has taught us, even though we who have been part of this community, she did teach us even some more. You know, I used to say that I have had the privilege of being invited to the privacy of people with HIV. You know, the adult one, the little one that we try to understand, and the bold one in the gay community who were always challenging, you know, us as a society. And we have learned, you know, the way in which to also challenge society in terms of the way in which they were pointing the finger at people with AIDS. But I think it's been hopeful because we have learned not only from the clinical way of treating these people, and who, number one, were very courageous, and we dare to call ourselves of part of themselves, of the society which they belong, and we think that, you know, we also belong to this society. And actually, we miss this intimacy because now, you know, HIV is a chronic disease that actually requests to go to the doctor less frequently as other chronic illnesses. But I think you know, sharing. I've had the opportunity to share again and be reminded of it was and the way it is now, and I am thankful for all in the panels and the people who are listening to us in the audience.
Perfect. I actually have a crazy challenge for you guys to analyze via research whether the stigma was about HIV/AIDS or about sex. To analyze the components of what made the stigma. About sex, about what was it about Haiti in particular? There's so many. What makes the stigma is still. I don't feel we still totally understand it. So maybe that's part of why we can't disentangle it. But maybe it's my own head. So, but let's continue the conversation. So I don't have enough words to thank you. To acknowledge the audience that stayed with that throughout. And I can't wait for our next conversation. And God bless you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
You too.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Oh,
Thank
wait a
you.
minute. Katema wrote something important.
Well,
She's running a literacy school. Oops.
Wow.
Go on. Shoot. Wait. Let me read it. It's
That's
too
not what she
important.
told us.
Wait. Oops. Yeah, I know. But this is wonderful because actually, yeah, hold on. And there's a okay, so she's in Pakistan actually. I'm running a literacy school with over 300 students, all mothers. God bless her. I'm facing many problems every day by our people in the society. My goal is empowering women and give them value. I'm teaching them reading and writing. Besides, we have a sports class for them. I was not able to study in Afghanistan, and I'm not able to study here in Pakistan. I would like empowering women to be in each other and help. Absolutely, you got us. Absolutely. Okay. So thank you.
Right.
So thank you everyone
Thank you
again.
so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
take care.
thank you all.
Bye.
Bye bye.